think about a talent acquisition manager, that can be an HR business partner. So when I think about just kind of the generic term of HR business partner, I think about somebody who has enough self-awareness, but someone who can take a step back from their function and realize and look at the broader picture and understand, like, what is it we do? What do we make? Who do we sell to? Who are our customers? What are our pain points? How do we make money? How do we lose money?
Welcome to Backstage Pass with the HR Rockstar, the show that pulls back the curtain and cranks up the volume on the most pressing HR topics, from talent strategies and workplace culture to career pivots and leadership. Because in today's world, HR isn't just behind the scenes, it's center stage. I'm your host, Jay Arnold, and in the world of HR and talent, there are times we recognize top performers within the workplace, sometimes referred to as rock stars. This podcast combines my love of HR as my career with my experience of 10 plus years performing shows around Michigan and the Midwest in my rock band, chasing the dream of being an actual rock star. Join me as I sit down with rock stars in their fields to have fun, insightful conversations that keep the human in human resources. Together we'll disrupt, innovate, and amplify the future of work. So grab your pass, turn it up, and let's make some noise. Joining me in the show is Seth McColley, a Dallas-based HR executive with deep experience across industries such as consumer goods, oil and gas, telecommunications, and tech. We talk about his career path, what great leadership looks like, and his advice for anyone looking to break into HR. Whether you're just starting out or leading teams, there's something for everyone in this episode. Hi, Seth, and welcome to the show. It's great to finally connect with you.
Good to be here, Jay. Thanks for having me.
We connected earlier this year on LinkedIn, and I stumbled upon a fun article just through Google and LinkedIn. I believe it's something to do with marketing and the rock band Kiss. I knew I had to reach out and say hello, and we've been connected for several months now. So it truly feels like the 6 degrees of connection based on mutual connections we have, and obviously a love for music.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Pleasure being here, man.
As we get started, could you give a brief introduction of who you are, your background, and your experience in human resources?
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Let's see here. Let's see here. April, we are in the month of April now, so I'm coming up on 28 years of human resources. So I've been in HR for 28 years, done a lot of different things, been in a lot of different industries, started the beginning of my career in some big places like AT&T, Yum Brands, Halliburton. But, along the way of my career, I've been in all kinds of different industries. I've been in retail and hospitality. I've been in distribution. I've been in software. I've been in heavy equipment, been in construction. And I think the thing that I love the most about HR is that, people are people are people, right? So it doesn't really matter if you're selling software, if you're selling liquor, or if you're selling, pizzas or whatever. People are people. They're going to have comp problems. They're going to have people are going to need to be hiring people. They're going to be firing people. They're going to have training and development problems. I mean, it's all people. So I like to say that I'm industry agnostic. I know that term probably gets used too much and overused sometimes, but I really do feel like that's a superpower. When you've been in a number of different industries, you can take that experience and apply it to different things. So that's a bit about me. And I do have I noticed the 6 degrees reference that you had there. So I did start a podcast of my own about 6 years ago called 6 Degrees or Less, because I am just by nature, I'm an extrovert, and I love connecting with people. I love networking. And so I thought about all of the people in my professional network, and I thought, man, there are some pretty interesting stories and some pretty interesting people that I'm connected to. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to kind of just share those stories with the others, with others and with the world? And so that's what I did. I really just started out as, hey, let's just record a conversation and talk about how we got connected. And maybe we'll make some people laugh along the way. Maybe we'll teach somebody something along the way. And more than anything, I was like, I don't even care if anybody listens. I'm having fun. And so I was like, let's just do it. So I did.
What led to your career in HR? Some people have they fall into it by accident, and some have a direct path towards it.
Well, I wish I could give you this story that's like that really shows you how disciplined I am and how well thought out my path was in life. But I don't. I've got the truth. So I was a psychology major, and I had all these grand plans that I was going to go be a sports psychologist, and I was in it for all the wrong reasons. It was money. And I got about 4 years into my psychology degree, and I realized I really don't like this stuff. It's like I really don't want to go to graduate school and do this. Like, and so I was like, what am I going to do? Like 4 years in, I can't really change my major. And so I finished up my degree, and I ended up getting kind of my first job out of college was working for the YMCA, and I was making $7 an hour. And at the end of this, it was like, doing an on-site camp director. And at the end of the summer, they're like, we want you to be the assistant youth director, and we'll pay you $750. And I was like, no. So anyways, through I didn't know it at the time, but networking, so through people in my life and people that I knew at the time, I kind of landed in a role. And eventually the real story was I couldn't even, back then I couldn't even spell HR. I didn't know what HR was. But I had a good buddy of mine, a friend of mine, a roommate from college, who went to go work at this small engineering construction firm, which ended up being Halliburton, as a project engineer. And I noticed that they had a chart. This is back when you used to look for jobs in the newspaper. So that tells you how old I am. I was looking for, and I saw this entry level role in the paper, and it was like employee services representative, and it was at that company he went to work for. And I was like, oh, this will be fun. I'll go work there, and I'll haze him, and we'll have a good time. And anyways, through a mutual connection, one thing led to another, and I got an interview, and 2 weeks later I got a job offer, and that started my HR career. And it was as entry level as you can get, and did that for a year, and that led into a benefits role. And then it was really, after that, it led to an HR generalist role. And that's really, when I got into the HR generalist role, I was like, all right, this is it. Like, I'm loving this. And I was just eating it up, and I wanted to just learn everything I could about what it is and what I could do with it. And so that was really where it took off. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's similar somewhat. Like I went to school and I thought I did the same thing. I started as a psych major and I was like, I'm going to do this. And I got several classes in, not the full 4 years or anything, but I was like, wow. And then I started doing research and I was like, wait, I get my bachelor's in this. I can't do anything with this. If I want to be a psychologist, I need to go master's. And then like, is this PhD? Is it like, am I like, what is, I started looking at it going, well, I need to make money at some point. And I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and I didn't realize at the time that maybe a psychology degree could have been a pivot into business or HR, and I was like, okay, so, but then I did take a business class in the process and then a small business class. And then I started connecting the dots of these business classes with psych. And then I didn't realize that's HR. And
Yeah.
then a really good friend of mine who later became my guitar player, he was working at a restaurant one summer and he hurt himself on the job, wasn't screwing around, wasn't, horsing around or anything. And him and another worker were moving a rack and his foot got twisted the wrong way that it should ever go and ended up snapping his ankle. And they rushed him to the doctor, had a cast on his foot. And he's like, yeah, it's crazy. I'm off. He goes, I was, a line cook at this golf country club for the summer. And I'd taken just enough HR courses at that point. I'm like, hey, you probably are qualified for workman's comp. And he goes, well, I'm part-time. I go, it doesn't matter. I go, tell your boss you're filing a workman's comp claim. And then he called me the next day and goes, my God, you were right. They owe me workman's comp. I wasn't doing anything wrong. I got hurt as a direct result. So that's when my light bulb moment, I was like, wait, there's these rules and laws and regulations that all these companies have to adhere to. In theory, we know not everyone does.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm like, so these are like a sports team. These are the rules. And then the referee has to blow the whistle. And especially if it's a safety violation, if someone truly got hurt.
Yeah.
So that was my aha moment into HR. So I just felt like I had to share that with you because we both started as psych there. And here we are.
Yeah. I feel like back then, again, I'm dating myself, but back then I just, either it was a thing and I didn't know it, or it just really wasn't a thing. But that was kind of like really before, IO psychology, like industrial organizational psychology and things like that. And that was really, I didn't really know much about that. Again, I never, as a matter of fact, I was a psych major all the way through. So, I did the, abnormal and environmental and psychology of reading of all things. I took a course on psychology of reading. I don't remember one thing from that course, but I took it. But I think now, like, I don't know how there could be a psychology major that doesn't have at least one or several business components, like classes where they talk about, corporate responsibility or ethics or whatever. And back then there was like, back then there's really just no connection at all. And then later on in my career, I realized I was like, hey, I mean, I was a liberal arts major of psychology. And so I never had to take, finance or accounting or any of that stuff because that just wasn't part of my deal. And so I realized, hey, if I want to continue to level up and do more in HR and become a true HR, business partner and whatnot, I need to go back to school. And so I went back and got my MBA. And so that was where I kind of got the business piece because I felt like that was missing. I felt like the business component was always kind of a missing piece. And so I went back later and got the MBA.
Yeah, we have very similar with minor differences here and there of our path. Same thing, went back on my MBA with a concentration in HR. And a previous podcast guest, Dr. Lee Meadows, was one of my first HR professors in grad school. And I just got bit by that bug and loved every one of his classes. And I was like, I'm all in. And I was actually serving as a labor relations rep during the day at my current employer where they had 5 or 6 different labor groups.
Mm-hmm.
And then doing my MBA at night with the focus in HR. I was like, and that was
Wow.
completely done by design.
Yeah.
I was like, nope, I'm going to do one thing during the day, another thing at night. I'm going to wear 2 hats on purpose.
That's great. That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
Looking at your career, what have been some of the most rewarding aspects of your HR journey? Because like you said, you've been in a wide variety of industries.
Yeah. That's a great question. I think, as I think back along my career, I can think of several people in my life kind of and along the journey where I've been able to, help them navigate a problem or a situation and maybe right a wrong or kind of help, bring justice, if you will, to a situation. But I think, and those are great. I mean, I think we have that opportunity as HR professionals to help to help shepherd and to help kind of take care of the flock, right? To help the people within the organization and help them maybe find a voice or sometimes be the voice for them, but help them find their voice so they can kind of navigate, things better. But I also think about, and the thing that I think that really sticks with me is just the points in time where in my career when I've been able to really truly affect change, whether that's creating a new process or implementing some new people tool to an organization or helping some organization. I mean, I guess, one thing I think about is 2 things that come to mind, so 2 employers ago when I was in my first VP of HR role with a company, 2 things happened. Well, one big thing happened, COVID. That was a big thing. I mean, you might have heard of it. I don't know. You can look it up. It's kind of a thing. COVID was kind of a thing. But so, the organization had been around for, gosh, at that point in time, I want to say it's 40 years as a family-owned business. Never in those 40 years had they ever had to lay anybody off or never had to do a layoff, never had to do a furlough. And so I had this incredible opportunity. And so, I mean, you can understand what I'm saying. As a fellow HR practitioner, you can understand when I say this is a great opportunity. This isn't something that is like a lot of fun. And most people, don't plan their weekends around stuff like this. But when you have an opportunity to take a leadership team that's never done something like this and help them kind of go through that, like, hey, here's how it works. We need to, and you introduce them to the Older Workers Benefit Protection Act. And like, no, we can't it's not like we can just pick and choose all of our favorite people and say, hey, this person goes, this person stays, no, that's kind of against the law. Like, we need to have some criteria and we got to keep in mind demographics and we got to keep in mind, age and race and sex and things like that. And so and this was all new to them. We're talking about a group of COO, group of VPs. They'd never done this in their career. So there's nothing fun about that. But as an HR practitioner, as an HR pro, that's good stuff. I mean, when you get to kind of take a group through that, a leadership team through that for the first time, so that was big, helping them kind of navigate that. And it wasn't huge numbers, but we did end up. I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head. I think we ended up laying off 38 people and we furloughed like 17 people. And so we got through that, fairly successfully. But another thing that we did during my time there was we created a manager training course. So I was over HR and safety. And so I got together with my safety director and my HR manager, and we kind of put our minds together and we created this 1.5-day course where it was kind of like, okay, we're going to take all of the managers in the company, everyone who's kind of got people management responsibility. And we're going to take them through this 1.5-day course. And so we designed this whole curriculum and whole session, 1.5 days of what it was going to look like. And we're going to bring them into headquarters, and then, in the night, for a full day session. And then that night we get the leadership team together and we do like a little, kind of a happy hour time, kind of, meet with the leaders. I mean, so it was a small, kind of focused, dedicated group. And then we spend the next half a day, finishing up our work, and then send them on back to wherever they came from, back into their home. And so, things like that are, to me, that's fun. I mean, that's when you get to kind of build something and create something. And so I think about the early part of my career being in big organizations like AT&T and like Halliburton and like Yum Brands. And these are some of the largest companies in the world. And it was great. And it was a fantastic experience to be part of those big organizations. And I'm glad I had that opportunity and those learnings. But now I'm more interested now in building something and creating something from nothing. So that I think is what really excites me, is just that ability to create something, as opposed to like, well, you've been doing it this way for 55 years and you just need someone to kind of keep the engine going. And that doesn't sound very exciting to me. I'd rather go in and build something and create something.
That's such a rich history because, like you mentioned, you've been in so many industries, like you said, engineering, construction, wireless communications, retail, hospitality.
Yeah.
So with your deep experience across all these sectors and holding multiple roles,
Mhm.
your point of view, what qualities define a great HR leader?
Good question. I think when you think about a good HR leader, there's so many words that come to mind. I think compassion. I think empathy. I think when I think of a true HR business partner, and that's a very broad term, right? I mean, yeah, I come from the school of thought where, I mean, you could be in a role that is actually titled an HR business partner, but I also think of, like, when I think about a role as a VP of HR, I think that's an HR business partner. When I think about a talent acquisition manager, that can be an HR business partner. So when I think about just kind of the generic term of HR business partner, I think about somebody who has enough self-awareness, but someone who can take a step back from their function and realize and look at the broader picture and understand, like, what is it we do? What do we make? Who do we sell to? Who are our customers? What are our pain points? How do we make money? How do we lose money? One of the things that I think one of my biggest learnings when I joined Pizza Hut many years ago, right? So Pizza Hut's one of the brands, Yum Brands. I spent the first, I'm not even kidding, probably 2 to 3 months. I spent the first 2 to 3 months in the restaurants. I didn't do a lick of HR. And at first I thought, well, this is weird. Like, you hired me to be an HR manager, but I'm not doing any HR. When am I going to do HR? And I'll never forget my manager. She told me, she's a fantastic person, by the way. She said, you've got the rest of your career to do the HR stuff. She said, I need you in the restaurants learning the business. I need you learning operations. Because she said, I guarantee you come in, you start doing HR stuff, you will never have the time, you'll never make the time to go back and learn the business. So I want you in the restaurants. I want you making pizzas. I want you delivering pizzas. I want you helping with inventory. I want you learning the business. And at first I thought she was crazy, but I tell you what, 6 months later, I was like, she was brilliant, because I could go whenever I was out in the field and I was visiting restaurants. I could actually go and talk shop with the restaurant general manager. And it wasn't about people stuff. I mean, I might've been asking about turnover and this and that, but I was like, hey, how's your accuracy? How's your cleanliness? How's your, what's your, and so I was able to talk shop, right? I mean, she doing that thing gave me street cred, right? Going and talking to the business. And so I think, to go back to your question, what makes a great HR leader, I think, is, compassion. I think it's empathy. I think it's smarts, being able to connect the dots, understanding the business, being a true business partner, and understanding, what does this business do? Because I think where sometimes some HR people fail is they've got blinders on, right? They're just like, all I know is HR. All I'm going to do is HR, right? You want benefits? I'm just going to give you benefits. It's all I'm going to do. You want a requisition field? That's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to give you a requisition. And they're just focused on the HR stuff. They're not seeing, the landscape, the macro piece all around them. And finally, I guess I'd say, when I think about HR leaders and what they should, I think the ability to see around corners, I think, is what I'd say. I think that's a key thing, right? So someone who can help either, CEO or the leadership team, or even just a manager that they support, help them see around corners, right? So, hey, Jay, I know you're thinking about doing this and you want to do this with so and so, but hey, have you thought about this? Like, let's play this out. So what happens when you do this and you move this person here and you demote this and you do this? What's going to happen then? Like, what's so helping them see around corners, I think is a big thing.
Yeah, that's great. And I think, like you said, it gives you street cred when you learned operations, everything. I mean, really,
It's huge.
you're building trust from day one.
Absolutely.
As you said, going in and talking shop with the different general managers.
Hmm.
What advice would you give to someone looking to start a career in HR? You and I both talked about how we broke into HR
Hmm.
and we both had similar yet a little bit different paths. We both didn't, go to college and tell our parents and friends, "Yep, I'm going to school for HR." Maybe not till later, but
Yeah.
compared to now. But like, so if someone is looking to start a career in HR, what
Oh.
essential skills are key?
I'd say flexibility. I'd say again, I think there's certain things you got to know enough about the business. I think you got to, now it's a different world now. I mean, you almost can't have a conversation now without talking about AI. And let's be very clear. I can barely spell AI. So I have so much to learn about AI. Like I've got so much to learn, but I got to do it. Like for a while there, I was kind of like, it's not really a thing. I was kind of ignoring it. Now I'm like, all right, there's no ignoring this. Like I gotta figure this out. And so I think if somebody was starting their career in HR, I would definitely say, hey, you've got to find a way to embrace AI and understand AI. But I think I keep going back to flexibility, and here's where I'm going with that is you got to be willing to say yes. And I've always said that you've got to be willing to say yes. And what I don't mean by that is there's a difference to me between being a yes man, right, or yes woman, and just saying well, yes, I'll do it. Yep, I'll do whatever you want. I'll do whatever you want. But what I'm saying is be open to possibilities and opportunities. And when opportunities come up, be willing to say yes, right? So if you're early in your career and you've got the flexibility and you've got the wherewithal and you've got the curiosity, I've moved a lot early in my career. I started my career in Houston. I started my HR career in Houston. And then I went to Chicago and I was in Chicago for about a year. And a company came to me and said, hey, we're creating a brand new role, HR for HR. It's in Seattle. It's at the headquarters. Are you interested? And I was like, yes. So what did I do? I went out, I interviewed, I got offered the role, and then I moved to Seattle. And I did that role for a couple of years. And then they said, hey, we got this opportunity supporting the call center. Between you and I really had no interest in spending time at the call center, but I'd never done it before. And so someone I trusted and said, hey, it'd probably be a good thing to just get some call center experience on your resume. And I was like, so what did I do? And so I went and I spent some time at the call center. And then they came to me and said, hey, we're opening up. This is right when after AT&T Wireless and Singular Wireless went through their deal. And said, hey, we got this market in Denver, Greenfield market. Are you interested? Yes. So what did I do? I moved to Denver. And so I think about, I mean, yeah, was it hard to make all those moves, but was it worth it? I mean, I think about every single one of those roles and every single one of those places in my career where I've lived, and I don't regret any of it. And I feel like kind of just having that mindset of I'm going to be open, I'm going to listen, and I'm going to be willing. And when opportunities come up, I'm going to say yes. And so I think sometimes people, again, it goes back to blinders. Maybe they're like, well, I've never moved, I've never lived outside of wherever I am, and I don't know if I could live in another state. I don't know if I can live in another city. I don't know if I could be away from my friends. I don't know if I could be away from my family. Well, okay, then that's what you got. Maybe great opportunities will come and find you, but you could be missing out on so much more.
Well, to add on to that, is there any different advice you give someone like already working in HR and maybe they already had that role as a generalist or they're in it now, or perhaps they're in a specialized area, a center of excellence or, center of expertise like comp, benefits, labor
Mhm.
relations, and they want to grow within HR and they want to be that HR manager one day or HR BP, senior BP or director VP.
Yeah,
Is there anything, they have the book of knowledge
yeah.
of the fundamentals of different areas of HR, but what's next?
That's a great question. I think there's some different schools of thought within the HR community, right? What it means to become an HR business partner. I think about this term a lot, and I think you'll understand what I'm talking about. When I think about an HR generalist or an HR business partner, I think about jack of all trade and master of none, right? So somebody who
Yeah.
knows enough to, like, I know enough about comp where I can help the organization, or I can help a client group. Whether it's help a client group kind of navigate. I know enough about talent acquisition. I know enough about benefits. I know enough about learning and development. I know enough about employee relations. Like, so someone who's got enough breadth of HR knowledge and know-how, to me, I think makes for a really good HR business partner, as opposed to somebody who has a lot of depth. I think people who got a lot of depth are probably really, really good at being a specialist, right? So I'm going to be a talent acquisition specialist or benefits specialist. But I really do think that, when I think about the HR business partner role, I think about someone who's got a lot of breadth. So enough depth where they can be effective. But I think someone who's got enough breadth, I think, is really what makes them effective.
Yeah, when I was on the HR immigration team at a previous company, a director had come back from assignment overseas, and she inherited our team on the immigration. She didn't realize she was she thought she was running comp, and then within a few days she was, oh, I guess I'm inheriting the immigration team as well. And I knew her before she went on assignment. And after a week or two of, pleasantries and getting back up and running, she sent me an email and said, teach me immigration. And she was a business partner before she left. And I said, what do you know about immigration? She goes, I know enough to be dangerous, and I don't want to tell someone something that's going to screw up their status, or tell a hiring manager one thing and
Right.
the law says something different.
Yeah.
And then I said, okay, but in return, you have to teach Jay compensation. And again, I knew enough to be dangerous. I couldn't build a compensation model like some of the comp, analysts do.
Right.
I mean, I could learn it, eventually learn how to do it, but I knew enough like, okay, here's what this means. Here's where this quartile means. And here's the salary data you pull from. You just don't make numbers up out of thin air. You do market research.
Yeah. You learn about like red circling and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Compa ratios. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Pay compression and internal equity.
Yes.
So yeah, so it was fun because we really helped each other get up to speed on different areas and to have that strong backgrounds. What do you see, as an HR professional, and again, you've worn many hats, what do you see some of the biggest challenges facing HR today? Whether it's remote work, AI, employee engagement. We know engagement is at an all-time low across the board.
To all of those things. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, COVID really did a number on us. I mean, in a number of ways, right? I mean, I know a lot of people say, well, yeah, it's gone. Yes, it's gone, but I think it affected the way that we think about work, in so many ways. Yeah, I think the whole remote on-site hybrid thing is a struggle for sure. I think that, I will say this, I don't think that there's one right answer. I think it kind of depends on the organization. I think it depends on the culture. I think that flexibility is really the key word, as opposed to hybrid or on-site or remote. I think flexibility. I think, organizations kind of being willing and able to treat people like adults and say, hey, you've got, I know you've got commitments, family commitments and things, commitments outside of work, and we respect that. And so I think flexibility is really the key word there. I think AI, I think, is really, again, it's changing dramatically fast. I mean, every day it's changing. I think that that's going to can impact the way that we work for sure. I think there's a lot of things it's going to do to enhance and to make us more efficient and to make things faster. But I think it's also going to, I used to be really, I wouldn't say afraid, but I just so worried about like it's going to take away jobs. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago an HR friend of mine said, it's not really, you don't have to worry about taking away jobs. What you got to worry about is like the people who don't get on board of the AI thing now, like they're going to be the ones kind of left behind because they haven't figured out how to integrate AI into the work that they do, because it's coming. There's no stopping it. It's not a fad. It's not a trend. It's not going anywhere. I mean, it's so crazy to think about. Like, I've got an 8-year-old son, and the reality is that unless he ends up being a doctor or lawyer or plumber or something like that, the reality is that the job that he ends up doing probably doesn't even exist today.
Yeah.
And isn't that wild? Isn't that crazy to think about? I mean, on one hand, it scares the heck out of me, but on the other hand, I'm like, that's awesome. That's so exciting. But it's just, I'm a big believer in the whole idea of disruption. This is a disruptor. And so I think that, I think engagement is a problem. I think that, where we work and how we work is a problem that has to be kind of, dealt with. But I think also finding a way to incorporate AI into the way that we work is important.
those like you made a comment about like you got to get on board with AI. It reminds me of the late 90s, early 2000s during the dot-com boom and obviously the dot-com burst, the bubble that
Mm-hmm.
came after that. But I remember I was working at the college bookstore. I was a student worker on campus, working on my classes and working on campus in between classes. And then a full-time position opened up at the college I was working at. I was like, oh, I could be assistant manager of this college bookstore. A lot more money. Any class I take is for free. It's helping me get through, my undergrad.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is great. And then all these online.com bookstores are popping up, some, boutique ones. And I'm not talking Amazon that was just selling, the best sellers,
Right.
but really these ones that were targeting college campuses and like you can get your textbooks for half price. And of course, a lot of misinformation at first, people buying the wrong stuff, wrong edition. But I remember having to approach a senior leader who's since long retired. I went to a conference for college bookstores one summer in the late 90s. And I said, look, she asked me, she's like, hey, can you present at a team meeting next week about what you learned? I said, sure. And she goes, I know you probably learned a lot. And I said, yeah, the online book thing, it's not going away. It's here to stay. And she goes, I go, so if anyone thinks this is a fad, we need to have a deeper conversation as a team because we had 5 campuses. Each campus had their own bookstore.
Yeah.
And I said, because it's here to stay. And students/customers will be walking in saying, hey, I'm just getting the ISBN number to go find this online.
Yep.
And so what are we going to do? And now, of course, you can buy books, any Amazon, wherever, a million things. You can rent textbooks. There's ebooks.
Yeah.
My daughter, I think, has only bought a couple books at Michigan State where she goes versus renting them or a digital download. But initially they're like, all these books are going to be on CD-ROM and we're going to out of a job and they're going to be buy them out of a vending machine.
Yeah.
And that didn't really happen. And so my thought is the same to AI. It's like, well, we better learn this. We better get on board and learn how to use it to our advantage.
Yeah.
I'm a big listener of Scott Galloway, known as Prof G, and he always says, "It's like AI is not going to take your job. Someone who knows AI will." So,
bingo. And you basically summed up the conversation I had with my HR friend. That's basically, you said it more succinctly and quickly, but that is exactly the point he was trying to make was you shouldn't be worried about AI taking your job. He was just like, you just be worried. The people who figure it out, they're the ones that are going to take your job. I mean, that's exactly the point.
We talked about what COVID did to people, and I know some people are like, well, it was a sniffle, and we know, especially being in HR, we saw things from organizational perspectives. Everyone's results may vary, but you address something, and I thought we could touch on it. Is how do we approach work? Engagement's at an all-time low, and we got through COVID. And 2020 was just a really bad year, no matter how you slice it. COVID, there were political things happening. There were demonstrations in the streets.
Yeah.
But then you start thinking, how can HR teams effectively address burnout and mental health concerns of HR? Who's taking care of HR? So like if you and I work together and you were my vice president, Seth, you might be like, Jay, you don't seem yourself today, or a couple of weeks ago, you don't seem yourself. And it's like, yeah, I might come to you and go, do we have an EAP plan? Can I talk to someone? I need an hour and a half on a Friday afternoon just to talk to someone, because I'm putting out fires. I didn't know I signed up to be a firefighter, and it's like, who's taking care of HR?
Yeah. Who's there for us?
Yeah.
I mean, in many ways, HR is kind of the loneliest profession, right? I mean, so we spend all of our time and energy and focus and attention on the organization and all the people that we support and the leaders that we work with, but very seldom are we doing the things that we should be doing and could be doing to take care of ourselves. Yeah, I mean, the burnout's a real thing. I've been there, and it's tough. It's kind of like, well, practicing what you preach, right? It's easy for me to tell people, well, yeah, you need to do this. We got the EAP, we got this, but then I think about, well, wait a minute, did I call the EAP? No. And so I guess what I'm coming down to is I think we've got to find a way to, the word that comes to my mind is normalize, but we got to find a way to be okay with talking about mental health and well-being in the workplace. And I'm not talking about sharing our personal struggles with people, but being okay and telling people that we work with, the leaders we work with, like raising our hand and saying, hey, I need a breather. I need help. It's not about saying, hey, this is what I'm going through and giving them all, just vomiting all your stuff, but being okay with saying, hey, boss, I'm struggling right now. I need some help. And we're not there yet. We're not there yet. I think some organizations are further along than others, but I think we're a far away from being in a place where it's okay to, it's like, when I, in several roles, right, where I've overseen the benefits for the organization, you get the utilization reports for the EAP. And it's always a bit of a, like, you see, wow, man, why is our utilization so low? You're like, man, like, I wish, do we need to promote the EAP more? Like, how come people aren't using the EAP? And so it's always like, it's this weird thing between like, man, I wish people, like, I'm glad to see that, the utilization is low, but then on the other hand, you're like, I kind of wish utilization was higher. Like, I wish we've got this great resource, this great benefit. I wish people were tapping into it more. And so I don't know, we just got to find a way to make it more acceptable and more okay to talk about, because it's still kind of a taboo topic.
Yeah, it's strange because the younger generation, my daughter's in college, they have no problem sharing mental health struggles, challenge, like just openly. And it's athletes nowadays. So I'm walking away from contracts, and I'm like, okay, there's definitely been a shift. And I'm like, there's a decorum, but sometimes you still don't feel comfortable saying to your boss, like, I'm not doing okay. Can I come in and, at 9 a.m. 2 days a week? Because I really need to hit the gym for 2 hours in the morning. I can't get to it at night. And just having that exercise in the morning, or just having that shift, but that's where that flexibility comes in.
Yeah, flexibility.
I remember a previous manager I had, a director, she was awesome. And she knew she was leading a team of leaders. And it really came down to, like, I would go to a dentist appointment or something. And I'd always try to do it right around, that 12 noon, 12:30 window when I could. Doesn't always work out.
Yeah.
But she knew, okay, Jay's taking a lunch, a little bit of a longer lunch. And then if there was a delay because an appointment got backed up, I would text her, go, hey, it's still 20 minutes. I'm running 20 minutes behind on my appointment. And she's like, why are you texting me?
Yeah.
You staggered it so there's no meetings, right when you're done with your cleaning. But I was like, it just gives you that sense of pride and trust. And like, I'm even go to the extra mile because I'm going to a dentist appointment. I mean, it's not really the top of my enjoyment list, but it has to get done.
There's nothing fun about this. Like, I'm not going to schedule more of these because I'm having such an awesome time.
Yeah. The
so
third
it
Thursday
sounds like
every month, right?
Yeah, it sounds like so early on in my HR career, I had one of the best managers that I ever worked for. I'll even say her name, Lisa Davidson. She was fantastic. And she was very much like that. She was based in Pittsburgh and I was in Chicago. And so she had a team that was spread out. And so she was managing a remote team back, kind of back when it was a whole new thing. And she was fantastic because she trusted us enough, right? She was there for support and guidance, and she was there when we needed her, but she also was like, she didn't micromanage, right? And so she was kind of that same way. Like, she'd be like, why are you telling me this? Like, you do what you need to do. Like, you don't need to tell me like, oh, I'm 5 minutes back from the office, or, oh, I'm going to be, I mean, she's like, stop. So, yeah, I guess I try to, as a leader, as a manager, the way that I try to approach every new, I'd say, work relationship, when I've got somebody that's reporting to me, is like, look, I'll trust you until you give me a reason not to. Like, I try to lead with trust. One of the core values when I was at Yum Brands at Pizza Hut, I don't know if it still is, was with belief in people, right? So I've always kept that, and I try to lead with belief in people. Like, so I believe, Jay, that your intentions are good and that they're true, and that you're giving me, if you went to the dentist, you're going to the dentist, and so I'm gonna believe that until you give me a reason not to, and then it's like, okay, it's gonna be a different conversation. And then that's where accountability kicks in and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it sounds like we've had the good fortune of having some really good managers.
Yeah.
By the way, before I forget, so I've also got a daughter that's in college, so I can relate to that, right? So I don't know that she's bought a textbook, but I think it was on her iPad or something. So I don't think she's walking around campus with a backpack full of textbooks like I was when I was in school.
Right. Yeah, I definitely have had some wonderful leaders. It's amazing when you have leaders that they lead based on output and results, and not, oh, you walked in at 8:38 this morning instead of 8:30. Never mind the construction on the highway, because there's two seasons in Michigan: construction and winter.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you're like, based on a certain role, they know you're working 60 hours that week anyway. And it's like, I just wanted to take my kid to school and see him off on the bus, have that moment for a minute. And they're like, yeah, fine, great, whatever.
Yep. Yeah. It makes It makes a huge difference, right? And it comes back.
It does.
I go, this isn't true all the time, but
Right.
I'm also a big believer in that idea that people leave managers, not jobs. I believe that people will stay in a job that they don't necessarily like or enjoy if they've got a fantastic manager, because they'll go through walls for that person. And on the flip side, I believe that people will, in a heartbeat, leave really, really good jobs. The benefits may be good, the compensation might be good, the commute might be good, but if they've got a horrible manager, man, you can't fix that. And it goes back to mental health, right? So it's like, what price are you willing to pay? So I really, yeah.
You sing into the choir there. And speaking of singing, it's funny because we mentioned at the beginning of the episode that I found you by happenstance through a Google search, looking up some things, and I found this article on how you tied the rock band Kiss, and I thought, okay, I gotta say hi to Seth, and we're gonna become fast friends here. How did you become a fan of Kiss?
So I knew this question was coming, and I thought about it, and the short answer is, I don't know. I'm fairly certain that my very first Kiss album, I'm talking vinyl, right? So I've still got somewhere in a box in my garage, probably all melted by now. I've got 13 vinyl Kiss albums. Pretty sure my very first Kiss album was the Gene Simmons solo album.
I'm sorry.
You're not a fan of the Gene Simmons solo album? Come on, man. No?
Ace Frehley.
Oh, man. Okay. All right. Well, that should be a whole nother podcast right there. So, and I mean, I literally played that thing. I don't even think I could play it right now because it's so scratched. I mean, I wore that thing, but I didn't have an older brother or sister. I didn't have it wasn't my parents going, hey, I mean, I think I was like in first or second grade. I'm sure they weren't like, hey, here's this band Kiss, check it out. This is before MTV. So I'm like, I literally was like, how in the world how did I get turned on to Kiss? I really don't remember how. I wish I could give you this really awesome story and tell you like I ran into them, somewhere, but I really don't know. But the two solo albums I have are Gene Simmons and Peter Criss, and then I've got a whole smattering of other Kiss albums.
Yeah, Dean Delray, he's a rock and roll comedian, and I've listened to his podcast forever, and he always asks people, what was your gateway, Led Zeppelin or Kiss? It's usually one or the other. And I was like, man, that's a great question.
Yeah, mine was definitely Kiss.
I was a little bit late to Kiss, but I grew up in the early 80s, and Kiss was, I don't want to say long gone because they had gone through a transformation of different members by then. But I grew up, by the time I was 8 years old, it was like Michael Jackson Thriller. That's what was dominating the airwaves, MTV. Moved to rock music, Bon Jovi, Cinderella,
Motley
Crue,
yes, okay,
Poison.
Yeah.
So by 1985, Rat, that was all of, MTV for me at that point, Headbangers Ball. But I was lucky enough, I knew who Kiss were, but I didn't know the history until I did some diving in at the time. I didn't have an older brother, but I had some friends in the neighborhood, and they had older brothers. So I started, oh yeah, Kiss, they had makeup and now they're dull. And so I did it kind of in reverse. I'm like, okay, I have to discover who this band is. So my first Kiss show was 1989 or 1990, the Hot in the Shade tour with Slaughter opening up.
Wow.
This was like Hide Your Heart forever, 80s unmasked, no makeup Kiss.
Yeah.
And so I saw that tour in a suite at the Palace of Auburn Hills.
Okay.
And I was also at the Kiss reunion in 1996 at Tiger Stadium in Detroit. It was completely insane when they put the makeup back on. Local Boy Sponge opened up, and then Alice in Chains. Wow. And on our way into the stadium, Billy Corgan walks right by us from the Smashing Pumpkins. And I was like, wait, that's Billy Corgan. And then Sebastian Bach, Skid Row, in line with us to get in. And we're moving slow. Yeah, like literally I could reach out and try to like give him a high five, but we ended up moving slow.
And he didn't have like an entourage or anything like that?
Gosh, wow. And something, some couple other people that weren't the guys in the band, but we're moving slow because remember my buddy that broke his ankle, he was on crutches. This is, 96 this happened. He was on crutches and he still made it to the Kiss show. He broke his left foot, so he actually drove.
Nice.
Because he had a car, he didn't. So we actually missed saying hi to Sebastian Bach and everyone because my buddy was walking slow because he was on crutches. And Tiger Stadium was insane. I mean, the rafters were just back and forth. And then Alice in Chains, Lane Staley told the crowd halfway through, everyone in the stands just run onto the field, and I watched security just get out of the way because it was a stampede at that point.
Wow.
And I was like, this is such a different Kiss show than when I saw them, 5, 6, 7 years earlier at the Palace.
Yeah. Wow.
But looking back, I was like, you and I chatted a little bit before the podcast, and I was debating with some other friends of mine who had better lyrics, Kiss Mask in the '70s, late '70s, or Kiss Unmask. So my thought is, who needs Lennon and McCartney or John and Richie?
That's right. Who
Right?
needs Jackson Brown? I mean, you're right. I mean, yeah.
Shout out to Frankie and Timmy from a band that we used to play with. They're major Kiss fans, and they've always had a debate who was more cheesier in the '80s, Bon Jovi or Kiss.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to go with Kiss. Yeah.
You see that, Frankie?
So you'll appreciate this. My mom would never let me join the Kiss Army. So I'm like an unofficial member of the Kiss Army. But back in elementary school, I got a Kiss belt buckle. I think I still have it somewhere. And I thought I was it. I mean, I wore that Kiss belt buckle. I mean, the thing was like this big. And it was like it had like all like kind of a 3D look to it. And I thought, man, I thought I was the man back then.
What is your favorite Kiss song or album?
I thought about this too. So I'll give you both. I'll give you both. I think Dynasty is probably my favorite album, and maybe that's I may be cheating a little bit there because it's 2 albums in one. It's kind of got the extended thing, right? But I love there's a lot of great songs. Cold Gin is a great song. I think when I think about my favorite song, I mean, Rock and Roll Night's good. It's fun, all that kind of stuff. I Was Made for Loving You. That's kind of the disco vibe, and it's fun listening and reading articles now saying how to talk about how much Gene Simmons actually hated that song. But man, I know it feels like I'm doing the easy one, but I love Detroit Rock City, man. It just gets you going, man. There's just something about the beat. I mean, if you just play it up loud and you just want to get your blood going, Detroit Rock City is a good song.
Well, being from the Metro Detroit, Motown, Detroit Rock City area, I have to agree. I mean,
you have to agree. Yeah, I knew you would. I knew you would.
City on my Peloton profile says Detroit Rock City, so
there you go. There you go. I mean, yeah, it's just great. Yeah, it just gets you going. I think I realized it took me a while. I've only been to one Kiss concert.
Wow.
It was actually it was only like 10 years ago. I had a chance to go see Motley Crue open up for Kiss, which was great because I was also a big Motley Crue fan. But it took me a while until I was an adult to realize they're not the best musicians. I know you may be shocked by that.
Right.
But they are pure entertainers.
Yeah.
And I realize I'm like, Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons are like marketing geniuses. I mean, what they did, I mean, Taylor Swift she's taken it like to the next level. But like those guys, I mean, I remember back in the day when you had Kiss dolls, that was a thing. You had to get, I mean, some people even wore things like Kiss belt buckles. I mean, who would do that? So, I mean, there's Kiss everywhere. I mean, it was, I mean, they were marketing it all over the place. And, oh my gosh. Yeah, it's like, but I think I realized, and it wasn't really, when I saw that show, I was like, these guys aren't the best musicians. It wasn't the best show, but man, they put on one heck. I mean, they were entertainers and they still are entertainers. I mean, it's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Bringing Kiss back to HR. So if Kiss were an HR team, who would be the best recruiter, the best manager, or cultural leader?
Yeah. Okay. So I think Gene Simmons would be the best manager. I think he's probably the most, I mean, it's probably a toss up between him and Paul Stanley. They're probably the most business minded. I mean, I've been to their restaurant, Rock and Brews, a couple of times. And I mean, they're business guys. Like they know how to make money. They know what they're doing. So I'd say Gene Simmons. When I think about recruiter, man, I got to go with Paul Stanley. I think I think about the way he performs, the way he kind of gets the crowd engaged and going. I mean, he seems the most, it's kind of most, come on. Yeah, that's what I would go with. That's what I'd go with. And I still, whenever I think about Kiss, my immediate thought is I go to Ace Frehley and I go to Peter Criss. I go to the original four. I mean, I know that that was a long, long time ago, but like I don't think about Vinnie Vincent, and I don't think about Bruce Kulick, and I don't think about Eric Carr. I think about the original lineup. That's Kiss to me, the original lineup.
As we're starting to wrap up, are there any Are there any new ventures or upcoming to share what you're up to? And where can listeners connect with you if you want to reach out and say hello?
Yeah, so LinkedIn's always the best way. I'm on LinkedIn. I try to post things there often, and I try to be visible and present out there and engage with people there. I do have my website, so it's sethmccalley.com, but it's also goes back to my 6 degrees or less. So it's the numbers degreesorless.com, same site. And so I mentioned my podcast earlier, and I had that for a while. I had to put it on the shelf, and so I'm about to reboot that. So I've already started talking with a couple of people that I'm going to have on the podcast, and so that'll be, hopefully in the next few weeks I'll have some new podcast material out there. So
I'll put all the links in the show notes for sure.
Awesome.
As we move to the Encore section, I always like to say I like to make sure working in HR we keep the human of human resources. Whether you work in HR, you work in finance and you're being on the show, you work in academia, consulting, everyone should be treated as a human being.
Absolutely.
To keep the human going is if you were to share your Spotify or Apple Music, whatever you listen to, what are some artists we'd find besides Kiss in your playlist?
Oh man, you find a pretty eclectic range of stuff. I mean, just right off the top of my head, like, so I've got a number of playlists kind of based on kind of different mood. But like if I just looked at my liked songs, I mean, I've got Eminem in there, I've got Frank Sinatra in there, I've got Crowder in there, I've got I've got Noah Gunderson, I've got Noah Kahn, I've got James Bay. Like I created a list several years ago, and I called it just Jays. No, not Jay. And I'm not saying this because your name is Jay.
I appreciate that. No.
Yeah, no. I didn't even make that connection until just now. But it was just Jays, like the letter J with the apostrophe S. And in it, I had James Bay, I had Jackson Browne. I love Jackson Browne. I had, I'm drawing up Jacko Pierce. One of my favorite bands is Jacko Pierce. And I had another J, and I'm drawing a complete blank. One of my favorite. So, anyways, I was like, man, it just happens. And maybe it's just a phase. I was like, oh, I feel like all I'm doing is listening to like Jackson Browne or James Bay. And finally, I was like, boom, I should make a playlist of just J's. So I did. So I've got just J's. So
we have to add the Jayhawks and Jackal.
Okay, I have no idea who they are, but the more the merrier. So yeah, I got a pretty eclectic.
Well, Jackal, you might remember that's the guy with the chainsaw, the lumberjack song back in the day.
Okay, got it. Yeah,
I'll send it to you.
Yeah.
What is the last show or concert or event you attended?
Okay. Yeah, I guess I'll cheat a little bit here. So my daughter is a senior at SMU, and she's graduating in a month. Believe it or not, I can't believe it. She's a dancer, and so the last show this past week, she had 3 performances: last Wednesday, Friday, and yesterday. So she was on point. She was in a ballet piece. I've spent a lot of my time in dance competitions and recitals and ballet performances and things like that. So I'm gonna hit the easy button and tell you the last event that I attended was yesterday on campus at SMU, attending her performance.
That's awesome. What is a guilty pleasure of yours? A food or a TV show or something that
I could watch movie trailers all day long. Like, to me, every movie looks awesome in the trailer. Like I feel like I could just I have IMDb. Like I'm a IMDb junkie, and so like whenever like we're gonna watch a movie as a family, I'll spend time ahead of time, and I'll go to IMDb and I'll read like the trivia, the facts about the movie. And like, cause I love, like, then when I watch the movie, like I'll pause the movie and I'll tell my family, hey, if you see the guy, see the back in the scene, right? Did you know that and my family's like, Dad, seriously, can you just hit play? Please stop. And I'm like, no, but look, yeah, but did you know the story? Did you know this? And they're just like, stop, just hit play. So I like to know all the behind this. It's almost like backstage pass, right? I like having like, see what I did there, Jay? I like the behind the scenes thing, right? So I like to kind of know like how the scene was made and what happened, and so I could watch trailers on IMDb all day long, and at the end of every single one, I'll be like, that looks pretty awesome. I want to watch that. So
yeah, I have a complete useless skill. If I recognize actors from commercials, shows, and movies, I'll look. My family would be sitting on the couch, we're watching something, or downstairs in the basement. I'd be like, hey, see that guy in that toothpaste commercial? They're like, yeah. I'm like, he was on this show on Netflix. He's done an insurance commercial on this. And they're like, why do you know that? And the thing is, I've been doing it for years, probably 10, 15 years. I have this really weird memory. I can remember like this stuff like that.
I remember lyrics. I mean, I remember like you could start playing a Poison song, and like I probably haven't heard it in 15 years, and I would start singing along. And my wife's like, "How do you like? How can you like? You can't remember that I told you to take the trash out yesterday, but you can remember like lyrics from Poison from like 25 years ago." And I'm like, "It's a gift. It's a super.
Yeah,
It's
Mama's
a super.
Fallen Angel, great song.
It's a superpower." Well, I don't know what I don't know. I don't know what to tell you.
One last question. What is the last show you binge watched? Something maybe you or your family on Netflix or HBO, Apple TV, something that you just is your go-to and you loved it.
Yeah, so we're kind of so I'll tell you, Ted Lasso. And so some people might say, "Well, wow, that ended like 2 years ago." So we were kind of late. So it took us a really long time to get through it, but it really wasn't until I don't know about a month ago when my wife and I finally finished Ted Lasso. And so we were, yeah, we were we were late to the game getting there, and it took us a long time to get through it. So that really doesn't really, I guess that's kind of that's not really binge watching. But it took us a while to get through it, but man, that's what a fantastic show. I'm excited about a new season coming up. That'll be fun to watch. But that was just yeah, it was a really good show. We loved it.
You're the third guest that has told me Ted Lasso. That's funny.
Are you serious?
And yeah,
Oh, that's great.
The person I had earlier today, same thing. And then John Hyman, employment attorney, he loves Ted Lasso. You have to listen to his story on his episode and how Apple sent him a gift because of all the retweeting he was doing of Ted Lasso.
Oh my, wow.
And I told him at the time that I hadn't watched it because we don't have Apple TV, but we just got it a month ago because we got new phones. We're a free trial for 3 months.
Sure.
And we're halfway through season 2, and I'm like, I totally get it now.
Good.
I want to get a Believe sign to hang in my home office.
Yeah. There's so many. I mean, you got the sports. I think there's the mental health. There's the HR. There's the leadership. I mean, there's all these so many different angles with it, man. It's just a feel good show. I just love it. I mean, it's just, I don't know. Part of me is really excited about another season, but then there's part of me that's like, man, are they going to come up with another season? It's just going to be totally lame. And it's just, are they going to ruin it? Right. So are they going to like try, I guess what they call that, jump the shark, right? Where, they're just like, are they going to try and squeeze one more season out? And everyone's going to be like, I wish I would have just left it alone. So I don't know.
Jump the shark, kind of like Kissed It with music From the Elder or Phantom of the Park, whatever that movie.
I remember that. I watched that as a kid. I remember that. Come on. You want to talk about cheese? Come on.
Yeah.
Come on. That was cheese right there. That was terrible.
Absolutely terrible. So Seth, this has really been wonderful to, sit down and connect. And for all of you listening, this is really a real world example of, finding an article on Google, stumbling upon someone's LinkedIn profile, saying hello. We've been connected for several months now.
Here we are. Yeah.
And like you said on your website, networking equals relationshiping. I have friends in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex area. And like I mentioned earlier, I have family in Waco. So if we ever travel, I've been down to Dallas for concerts, and we might be going down there to see family and the World Cup in 2026 in Arlington.
Awesome.
I would love to meet up for a beer or coffee, and we could talk all things music and HR. I'm sure our spouses would be bored out of their mind as we talk HR strategy and KISS.
Yeah. Boy, that would be interesting.
Yeah, we'll have to stay in touch for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah, let me know if you're coming down. That'd be great.
If you found value in this, please be sure to like and subscribe and keep rocking HR excellence.